I will give you 2 touchdowns that an XFL team would beat those 2 teams last night.
I would take it, but we would never find out.
We won't find out. KC Joyner will join us to talk a little bit more. What do you think, Casey? An XFL team or the college football champions last night? How are you handicapping that game?
It depends on if the XFL team has enough time to get prepped and in sync, because you're talking about the offensive lineman there. But if you've got an offensive line that's been playing together for weeks, and you've got them going up against maybe a more talented defensive line, or that defensive line, if you got the other side where you'd have the offensive linemen who aren't together for that many weeks, I'm going to take the team that's going to have been together longer. So you get even an XFL team that's been playing for 8 weeks, I'd take them. Otherwise, I'm going to take the team that's been together. I'd take LSU.
Wow. So you think a college team could hang with a professional team, even though it's an XFL team? They're still professionals.
I do, because if you go back to, and mind you, I know LSU is not a college all-star team. You can go back into the 50s and 60s. For a long time, the NFL would have its champion team start the season by playing an exhibition game against the college team. Now, it's an exhibition game, but there was pride on the line, and the NFL team would normally win, but one out of every 7 games, the college team would win. And you were talking college top players, some of the guys that are making the NFL Hall of Fame and such, so you're not talking bad players, but it's not impossible for a college team to have kept up with a pro team if they got enough talent.
I'm shocked by that, by the way.
I think it's closer than you think, Mike.
Like, for instance, the Seattle team here, their offensive line is comprised of a guy from Auburn, a guy from Texas, a guy from Indiana, a guy from Washington. It's not like they're pulling guys from James Madison and sticking them out on the field here. These are all SEC, Big 12, like big-time guys that are also 23, 24, more physically strong. That's where I find the difference. Talent-wise, sure, those guys are probably as talented, but the physical strength of those guys, I think, is where the college kids would probably end up falling in the end. You know what I mean?
Yeah, agreed. And if you're talking Seattle playing right now, again, if they're a team that's in sync and all that, then it'd be a different story. That would be a big thing if the teams aren't in sync. And I think that's part of the reason that the college teams back in the day in those all-star games, why they could keep up their pro teams. Because you're talking at a time of the year when the pro team, they're essentially a Pro Bowl team. So you're trying to get them, they're trying to figure out their system on the fly early on in the season. Yeah, they played from the previous year, but they're still getting their preseason going. And the college team is the same way. So it's kind of, there's some limitations there. But if you were talking NFL team at a peak versus college team, like if you take LSU and you said, okay, what NFL teams could they beat? Could you expect them to beat? I don't know that there's an NFL team that you would expect them to beat if you were playing them at NFL team playing at its peak time during the year. Even the Bengals, I think, would beat LSU if they played.
Yeah. For instance, like in the XFL, Landry Jones is the quarterback for one of these XFL teams. A couple of years ago, he was Trevor Lawrence. He was these guys that was, wow, this guy, Oklahoma can probably – but no, he couldn't. He wasn't good enough. Not that Burrows and Lawrence aren't better than him, but at one point, Jones and Cardell Jones and Landry Jones, they were the guys leading the best college teams in the country to wins. That's why I'm like, look, as good as those guys were, they couldn't even make it in the NFL, yet they're quarterbacking these professional teams, which means those teams are pretty darn good.
They are, and I would say something about you were mentioning about weight training and such. I remember talking to Gerald Briscoe, former WWE scout, when he was talking. We were talking about he was prospecting players to come to WWE, and he would probably people that come to WWE. He said that our training staff can normally get people. Even he was talking about one guy I did an article on named Jacob Casper. Jacob Casper is an All-American wrestler at Duke. He said if Casper comes to us, our training techniques will still be able to add about 20 to 25 pounds in him. And Jacob Casper is already a heavyweight collegiate wrestler, so he believed that's what their staff could do. The XFL staff will probably be of at least the same caliber as what the WB staff is given. Their tie-in with Vince McMahon running both organizations. Yeah. So I would think that the XFL players are going to be able to, and not going to be at NFL caliber, but I would be surprised if they weren't at a University of Florida caliber for their training facility.
Well, in fact, one of our hosts is on an XFL team. He left to go play for Tampa, and I was texting back and forth, and that's exactly what he said. The facilities that they are using are unbelievable. And he was with the Bears and the Giants, and he said they're on par with all of the NFL stuff that he's ever done before.
Yep, I went down to the WB's training facility. They're a performance center down at Winter Park. I live just about 20 minutes away from there, and I've been to that facility, and it is It's definitely. I can't compare it necessarily to an NFL facility, but it's a very good facility. They got the top-notch staff there and things. You could tell. You walk in there and it's obviously okay. This is a professional organization, billion-dollar organization, having a training facility there. So yeah, I mean the XFL players are going to get top-notch training from that perspective. They'll be able to they'll be able to put on the kind of pounds that an NFL team would want.
Yeah, actually, he said it will be better than the AAF, way better operationally. We are run like an NFL team, first class, everything. Honestly, I am very impressed, and great coaching as well. That was from our I was asking how it was going because he played in the AAF as well, and he said, the football was okay, the coaching was good, but operationally we were run terribly. But he is very impressed with how this is all running. So, interesting conversation, but I want to get your take, Casey, on the games this weekend, and I want to start with Tennessee and Baltimore because it seemed like everyone was convinced that this was Baltimore's year. What happened to them in that game?
How many times have we said on this segment over the years that power football works? If you can play power football the right way, if you can dominate the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball, power football works because there's all this analytics stuff, and analytics keeps talking about you got to pass more, you got to pass more, you got to pass more. Power football works. Analytics has yet to figure that out or yet to be able to quantify it the right way, and that's what Tennessee did. They've got the kind of power football that does work. And the thing is they were what I thought was interesting is they said we're going to put 8 and 9 guys in the box. Lamar Jackson, we want you to beat us throwing the football, and even when we got ahead, we're going to play shell coverage and let you throw underneath, and you rack up a ton of yards, but you're not going to be able to get to the end zone because once we get into a compressed front inside the 20, you're not going to be able to find open people. So I think that says not a lot about the Baltimore receivers as much as it does Jackson, but that's a way to beat Jackson is make him pass, and they were able to do it.
Yeah, and then, of course, they ran the ball 30 times, which you don't see, as you just mentioned, the power football. But, if they have to throw the ball, Tannehill was the top-rated passer in the league.
He was, and he was fourth in the league in play-action yards despite only starting 11 games. And A.J. Brown, think about it. If you came into that game and you said, okay, A.J. Brown's only going to get targeted 3 times, have 1 catch for 9 yards, you'd have been like, okay, Tennessee's losing this game. I mean, you would think that would be the case, but I mean, their top receiver in that game was Raymond catching 1 catch for 45 yards in that touchdown. Other than that, 2 receptions, John Smith, 2 receptions for 12 yards. They didn't have to throw to anybody, but against Baltimore, you don't want to do that because their secondary is that strong. I think that they're going to be able to throw the ball more this week. So it's one of those things where they don't need to go to their passing game, but if they do, Tannehill can do tons of play action. You've got to respect the run with Henry. People talk about you don't have to respect the run for play action, that it works as well either way. I think you could argue that play action works a lot better when you've got Derrick Henry, that tank in your backfield.
Well, right up against them was the later game on Saturday. San Francisco really manhandled Minnesota's offense. What left you impressed about San Francisco from that game?
San Francisco, their defense, we talked last week about how their defense is getting some players back. They're getting Quan Alexander, Jaquowski Tartt. They were getting essentially 3 defensive starters back, and it showed. And Minnesota's offensive line was not able to, and their offensive line had some trouble. Remember the game they had against Green Bay, they didn't do very well. And Dalvin Cook, 9 carries for 18 yards, and some of that was game flow, obviously, but they were able to just say, we're taking the ground game from you, and that's what San Francisco can do. Their defense is designed to attack your ground game and also to not let you run wide. They play a lot of fronts that would say, we're not going to let you do outside zone. You're going to have to go inside the tackles. You're going to have to attack the strength of our defense. And if Minnesota couldn't stop that with Cook, and again, their blocking wasn't that good, I think a lot of the other three teams that are left that they had to pay San Francisco, they're going to have some of the same problems because you're just not going to get outside against the Niners.
All right, let's go to the Sunday matchups in that wild game, Kansas City and Houston. Houston's up 24-0, and then it really changed with a bunch of different things that happened. But how was Kansas City able to turn that 24-0 deficit upside down?
Interesting thing is people talk about the offense, and there's obviously what they do on offense, 7 straight touchdown drives. That's the new record. I mean, that's all great, but think about Houston scoring 21 points. One's the blocked punt. Okay, that's that's not a defensive touchdown. That's a special teams touchdown. The other, Hill fumbles the ball at the 4-yard line, so they only have to go for the Fells 4-yard touchdown pass. And the other was a blown coverage where they had a kind of a trick play, and the safety got out of position and blew the coverage. Okay, those are 3 things that are hard to replicate. You take those out of the contest, Houston scores 10 points the rest of the way. Kansas City's defense played very well in this game. Besides the one blown coverage, they played very well in this contest, and that's something that's lost when you give up 31 points. But if you think of the Kansas City's going to be getting into shootout games, that's my takeaway of this, is they were able to take a very excellent Houston offense and really hold them in check for the entire game besides that one blown coverage, and that doesn't bode well for the rest of the teams when they play them.
And then, of course, Green Bay holds on. Seattle tried coming back late in the game, and, it was almost like the Eagle game the week before. They had the third down. They need to stop. They send the zero blitz. Seattle throws over the top of it, and they convert, and then they get that throw to Graham that really seals the deal. But Green Bay advances, and Seattle, this great season on the road for them falls short in Green Bay.
It does, and you're exactly right that they have the big play, and it's Adams versus a second-rate player in the Seattle secondary. It isn't their best person, so how in the world teams are able to get those kind of matchups late says something. Seattle, their running game obviously couldn't get going, which is, it really, I don't think it could get going as much as you would have hoped. They ran for 110 yards, but 64 of those were Wilson. They couldn't get anything going against Green Bay's defense, which is a bad thing. I'm still looking at Green Bay, though, and I'm going, you guys aren't putting teams away. I mean, you really should have been able to keep Seattle and be able to finish them off, and you didn't. You were able to eke out the win at the end, but you don't want to start playing clock ball too early, and I got the sense they were starting to play clock ball mid-third quarter. You can't do that. With the offenses that are left right now, the other three offenses that are out there, you're not going to be able to play clock ball because other teams will catch up, so Green Bay needs to rethink how they end games.
All right, KC Joyner is back on Friday to get us ready for championship weekend. We got San Francisco, Green Bay, Kansas City, Tennessee, and, of course, KC Joyner. Where are you at? You're out in Vegas, right?
I am in Las Vegas at the Fantasy Sports and Gaming Association convention, going out here to meet people and check out the sites and things. We're actually looking out. We're at the Link Hotel, and we're looking at the High Roller Ferris wheel. It goes about like 250, 300 feet in the air. It's a pretty cool view.
I like it. All right, so Friday we will check back in on championship weekend. KC Joyner, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. Thanks, pal.
Appreciate it.